so. No, 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 no. I don't think so. No, 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 no. It's never, ever, 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 ever gonna happen. I don't think so. No, 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 no. I don't think so. No, 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 no. It's never, ever, 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 ever gonna happen. I don't think so. No, 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 no. Maybe someday you'll have it your way. Maybe someday it'll all work out. Until then, nope, a nope, a nope, a nope, definitely nope, a nope, nope, a nope. Probably never, ever, 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 ever gonna happen. Oh no.
Welcome to Journey Through the Gate, your paranormal portal podcast, as we delve into the many questions and wonders brought on by this supernatural experience. What's on the other side of the gate? Let's find out together. Hi and welcome. How's everybody doing today on this wonderful, Monday? Monday, the beginning of the week. What a week. What a week last week. The week before that. I mean, time seems like it's really speeding up, and I often wonder if that is gotta wonder if this is like the whole, why am I fuzzy? We've got it on HD. I feel fuzzy. Anyway, maybe it's me. But anyway, like the Bigfoot, I'm giving off this vibration, so everything is really blurry or whatever. Welcome in, gatekeepers. It's so good to see everybody. Oh, it's Tuesday. Ted, it's Tuesday where Ted is. Hello, darling. How you doing? How's Lord Connor? No, I was just thinking, starting off your week, what does your week look like to you coming up? Do you guys think, well, I have to do this and this and this today, and you look forward to the weekend, and you really are just looking forward to that dinner or going to that movie or a concert or whatever it may be, or cleaning out your closet or rearranging, sock drawer or whatever it might be. And, lower your expectations, I guess, right? But the thing is how do we go about our day? Do we go about our day with intent when you wake up in the morning? Do you think, okay, this is going to be a good day? Or do you get up and you just kind of roll out of bed and go, and you just kind of slough your way to the coffee and, the shower? Everybody's got their routine. But I wondered if we start our day different. Before you do anything, before you do any social media or anything like that, maybe just take in your surroundings. Everybody's surroundings are going to be different. Some people have a dog that wants to go out. Some people have cats that want to be fed. Some people have kids that want to be fed or kids to get off of school. But if you could just take 30 seconds, a minute to put out in your day what you expect from it, what you're going to strive for yourself. I'm going to try to be more patient today. I'm going to try to say only 1 out of 10 things that I should say or feel like saying, whatever bargain it is you make with yourself, and make it obtainable. Don't make it crazy. You know what I mean? Make it to where you think you can handle it. Like, I'm going to drive to work today without cursing at one car, or I'm going to sing all the way to work, classic rock or something. And, maybe enter whatever door you go through next, or even if it's your own, maybe a little differently. And what do I mean by all this? Is if we set the intent for the day, yes, there are going to be things that try to break that intent, to try to knock you off track, to try to distract you, to push you a little bit this way or a little bit that. But I think if we start our day with the intent and ask our spirit guides, can you let me know if a person is coming into my life or into my minute of my day to strengthen something I need to work on, to push me into a direction or make me move in a direction that I need to go? If we look at things like that differently as milestones, or I had a conversation with somebody a couple of days ago, and I was saying, well, maybe your spirit guides are just telling you to go to this place because in that might not be the place you wind up, but maybe you meet the next thing there, or the next connection, or the next movement, next footstep in your journey. And spirit guides work like that. It's an amazing thing. And we always underestimate them, because we look at everything through our eyes, very linear, very, one level. And everything has multiple levels. Everything has multiple levels. Think of a river, the current of a river. And if you looked at that, and every just a little bit was lines, all those lines, that's us. And those are the effects in life. And that's the things that we do reverberate back. And as soon as I get Steve on here, I'm going to read you a little something I got today, because I don't think you ever realize how the impact that you might have on somebody, whether a smile, or you held the door open, or you said, hey, that's a nice dress. You look lovely today. Your hair looks great. Gee, that's a great cologne you're wearing today. One of the guys walked by or whatever. It's like, boy, you look snappy. You look like you dressed up a little bit. You look sharp today. That kind of stuff might be just the thing that person needs, that little bit of positive energy injected into their day that makes all the difference in the world, and then could maybe reverberate through maybe 10, 20 people that day. So if we think about that, wake up, start your week. Hey, it's Monday morning. What does the day have to offer for me? Instead of, oh, I got to get the tire changed. Oh, God, the traffic. Oh, it's so cold, or it's going to rain, or whatever. It's like, it's going to rain. Hey, great, because that's going to bring flowers and it's going to do this. If we could just try to think of it positively, maybe we can carry it all the way to the weekend. Wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that be something? I'd love to see us try to do that. Good luck. I make it to about Monday noon, and I'm ready to hit somebody with my lunch buddy, right? Okay, let me look at this baby here. I'm going to bring him on first. Forget you, Steve. Look at this. Look at that, darling. Get in here, Steve Stockton. Steve Stockton, everybody.
Hey, I thought I'd share that picture of Holden with you. Just
Pumpkin.
little personality, just all over the place. He's going to be a scene stealer. Just say hi to him and Nicole, who are watching from the
Hi,
other
Nick.
Love
How you
y'all.
doing, honey? Hope you feel better. Look at this, darling. Oh, my goodness. He's just a pumpkin. Ain't he
He's
just
a
a
little
pumpkin?
character.
Ain't he
And
something? Look,
Wednesday,
everybody.
Wednesday at 4:31 p.m. Eastern Time, he'll be 5 months old. Hard to
Wow.
believe.
Wow. Look at those eyes. My God. Look at
What
you.
color are they? Mine are green, and Nicole's are brown. His is kind of right in the middle, I think. They're
Yeah,
neither
they're
green
like a
nor brown. They're
dark
not my
sage.
green.
They're like a
Kind
dark
of
sage. I
a
love it.
hazel colored. Yeah.
Nope, dark sage. No, he's an old soul. He's going to be a wonderful sage person. Look at that soul. Look at that. Absolutely amazing. Look at that. I love you, baby. Lots of love. Pinch them little cheeks for me. How are you tonight, Mr. Stockton?
Yep. Feeling better, but still a little rough around the edges. I had some kind of crud
Yeah, it's
a few
bad.
days ago. I don't know if it was the flu or I don't get the flu or colds. I have
I
sinus
know.
issues. Uh, Usually 2 or 3 times a year, the fall and
I
then
know.
spring. But whatever this was, it hit me hard. The last time I had the flu was sometime in the 80s. I took a flu shot to get out of work for an hour,
It gave you
and
the
I got
flu,
the
didn't it?
worst flu I'd ever had. I thought I was going to die.
Hmm.
And it either worked really good or it gave me the flu because I haven't had the flu since. I haven't had the flu shot since. But
Yep. The
whatever it was
nonsense
this
they tell
time,
you.
it kind of comes and
I
goes. I feel
never
better,
understood.
and then all of a sudden I feel just like a limp dish rag
Oh,
or
yeah.
something.
It comes right back with a vengeance, like demons. It's a demon flu. It's like as soon as what an amazing two movies we had that absolutely kind of gives you a visual on what I'm talking about. If you happen to see Poltergeist and Poltergeist 2 with us over on the Rumble channel, because here's the thing. Ted was yelling at Tangina through the whole movie because she was saying this house is clean. He was right because she was wrong, and it pulled away, but then it went and it got stronger and came back with a vengeance. And she should have known that, and she should have, told him. But of course, she had. There wouldn't have been a Poltergeist too. So,
Yeah,
and the house would have never got sucked into the ground and all that other stuff. But that's the thing you have to remember about hauntings, or especially if you're dealing with an entity. Now, of course, in the Poltergeist, that was something that Spielberg had made up with the writers and everything else, but it did follow a little bit of what we consider the supernatural, paranormal, metaphysical rules. That if you don't back, it's a maintenance thing. It's not a one and done in a lot of cases, and people also need to know that you have to continue backing this stuff off, and sometimes it'll
yeah.
come back with vengeance,
There's
just
a
like this
real
damn flu.
interesting Bible verse about that too. Matthew chapter 12, verses 43 and 45. In this verse, Jesus describes a demon that leaves a person and returns to them after finding no other home. The demon finds the person's home clean and orderly and invites 7 more demons to join it, leaving the person worse off than before. So you have to know what you're dealing with to deal
Yep.
with it accurately and
Yep. There
effectively.
you go. That's it. That's true. And like I said,
Yes,
and
you reminded me of that.
even with ghosts, like the essence of human, if you ghosts that were earthbound and then crossed, and in some cases they're crossing, and the people that were haunted can't stop thinking about it, talking about it, bringing them back, and they're getting pulled back. And it's an amazing thing how
Reminds
these
me of
little
a
things
couple of
work.
guests we've had on here.
Yeah. Exactly. No
I
joke.
don't want
No
to call
joke.
him by name, but
Me
the
neither.
guy in outside Seattle that had
Yeah.
a
It got so
manifestation,
bad.
and yeah,
It really got
how's
so
he
bad.
doing anyway? Have you heard anything from him
I've been
lately?
keeping over the years, and the last time I checked in, I'm like, mm, 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 and all I can do is
Yeah,
sit here and wait to, you know, they know where to go to get the help, and connect it. It doesn't have to be me. There's multiple other people at this point in time. This person knows, but you've got to be ready to get rid of it. If you're going to do something, like say you're going to write a book on a haunted house that you had. I just got off the phone not too long ago with a lady. There's a very famous case, and she took years to start. Everybody kept bugging her, write a book, write a book, write a book. Well, now she's going out and talking about it on the interviews, and here it comes back.
yeah,
So it's just, you've really got to make a choice. You're stuck between, I want to write this book to tell people that these things happen, and if you're not careful, you could, it's nothing to play with, guys. It just really is. And I know it seems really fun and funny when people walk in and kick in doors, and they all have matching black t-shirts and all kind of fancy equipment, and they're yelling and screaming at these demons. But listen, Steve and I know the people that these people on television go to once they get in over their head. And we've both met multiple, what do you call them? Para celebrities there, Steve?
yeah, yeah, something like that.
But it's a real thing, and it's just as real with the mediums and psychics and people that go to help. Like last night we watched a good one. You know exactly what I mean, Steve, because you and I did an Alcatraz a couple of years ago, and I had pulled up the Peter James when he was on sightings, and he went through Alcatraz and was picking up on the guards that died. He had no idea any of these names. He hit them one right after the other, after the other, after the other,
And that's
and
an
it was amazing.
imposing place. I sent you that picture that I took from the end of the.
You
I
did.
can never remember if that's the Bay Bridge or the Golden Gate Bridge. I think that's the
I can
Golden
pull it
Gate.
up.
But
I think I pull
it
it.
doesn't look that far off until you look straight down. There's a big rock out there in the bay, and there's somebody in a boat, and they looked about the size of an ant. So if you're swimming across that water, you've got a rather strenuous swim ahead of you. And those waters are very, very cold, and they're shark infested. So,
Right.
uh,
Some great white. There it is. There, Steve.
yeah. Yeah,
Now
I think
explain
that's the
that wherever you.
observation deck at the end of the Golden Gate Bridge. I think that's the Bay Bridge in the background there. But they've got a lookout there. That's Alcatraz Island, you can see there. And I didn't send you the other picture, but if you look straight down over that, there's a big rock out in the water there, and the people were kayaking around it. And seriously, they look like ants. That's a lot farther away than it looks like there.
It does. It looks very close, and also you got to think going over that bridge, and you're looking at all these people that are in there, and you're just. I don't know. It's just such a foreboding feeling, to drive by a prison or, to stand under one. That one just seems so. How can you miss it? It's
They
right
don't call
there.
it the Rock for nothing.
Yeah, yeah. And then that's the title of a great movie with Sean Connery and Nick
Yeah.
Cage. Of course, it never happened, but that's a perfect example of you've got rogue military or rogue teams that go off and they're going to take over something, and for whatever reason, usually money's behind it. Money, the love of money is the root of all evil. But it's a good movie. Another movie that is pretty close to the truth, a little bit more of the truth that I saw and always stuck with me is, of course, the Clint Eastwood Escape from Alcatraz.
Yeah, that's a gem. That's a
And that was,
classic right there.
I've got the trailer here for anybody who hasn't seen it. We're going to take a look at the trailer here, but I wanted to
I
ask
didn't go
you
watch it.
first.
It's probably streaming, or you can
It's on
rent it
YouTube.
somewhere.
And I
Oh, it's
sent
on
the
YouTube.
link.
There you go.
I sent the link. I couldn't get it in the description. I could do it after the show, but it is on YouTube. I think it's free with ads. And then in the chat here, I put a link, and I'll do it again. That is to a movie. Is that it? Yep, it is. A movie about the real escape from Alcatraz, which is the one we're talking about many of them tonight, but the base one is the three men that, got away, where they keep saying
Unsolved Mysteries did a really good take on it too.
so good. So good. But what's neat about it, Steve, is it was 62. Now this happened in July of 62. I was born in January 62. So I'm like, 5 months old or something when this actually happened in real life. And you look back over time, and of course, as the decades peel back, just like anything, like the JFK assassination or whatever, you always have new evidence, new things come out. What I think never changes, Steve, is the BS from the people involved in keeping that contained. So in this case, it would have been the FBI and saying that,
And the
nothing
powers
was
that
ever
be.
found.
And that's what they say.
Mhm. And they're doing, of course they want to cover up the fact that nobody ever escaped from Alcatraz and got away with it, that kind of thing. But once this one happened, everything kind of fell away from Alcatraz, and things started kind of falling apart literally. But instead of saying, look, we can't keep people in here. Once people got out like this, it's going to cost us too much to fill in, make it stronger or whatever. And it's, they just said it was maintenance and shut her down, and everybody started peeling off. Al Capone was being sent off by then because, he had syphilis, and they didn't know how to handle. They just had so many excuses instead of just saying, look, somebody's escaped from here. We can no longer say this is the inescapable Alcatraz. And they just lost grip on it, really, and instead of just telling the truth, we shouldn't be covering it all up like that. But the worst part is saying that there was no evidence that those guys made it. So before tonight's over, you'll have some that'll make you question your own reality. I guess. But
Well,
I
it's
know
kind of like
you
D.B. Cooper. I mean,
Oh.
she said, the FBI says he did, and everybody else says he did. it's reminiscent of that in the way they
Yeah.
handle some of it.
It's absolutely true because I spoke a little bit last night about Hoover, just the way he was. They would never admit, okay, such and such got away, or we made a mistake, with Dillinger, or whatever it was. They'd always cover it up and lie, so they made no mistakes or anything else. But in this case, I think there's some good evidence out there that they might have just made it. So,
I like to think that they did make it.
I know, me too. But this is Alcatraz here. And also, I wanted to tell you, I know you're on baby duty. So if you've got to go in between, I've got a couple little videos, I've got a couple little things that I put together. You just let me know. And I can always throw up another video. Wait, you come back when you can. I just want you to feel free to do
Thank
that.
you.
Because
I appreciate that. Nicole and Holden appreciate it as well.
Yeah, and Nick needs all the help she can get right now.
Hey, everybody, I haven't said hi. Vixen Doe.
Say hi. There's Woo. Hello,
Mud's
Woo.
my number one
Mud's
mod over there on my channel, Woo Riders.
Mm-hmm.
Who else? Monica Device.
We got Lindsay is here.
Believe. Henway. What's a henway? Oh, 2 or 3 pounds.
About 2 or 3 pounds. Vixen Doe.
Dixon
RP.
Doe, Froze Moments, RP
Monica.
Skaza. She's a good mod too. She's one of my best. Her mod are my
just I love it. Don't you love it? Won't you love it? Froze is here.
Mud's a Tennessee guy too. Can't beat that.
Is he? Oh wow, what part? Well, you don't have to stay here. You don't have to stay here, like
near the Bellwitch Cave. Let's just say that. He used to be a bartender in Nashville, so he knows a lot of these country musicians.
Heck yeah. I was a bartender too, Mud.
And,
we're a special breed.
You worked in a studio too, didn't you, Mud? Didn't you work at some of the music studios down there? Hey,
Classmere. How you doing? All right. So I'm going to throw up one. We've got a couple cards here to read. If Steve can read them tonight, we'll do it that way. If not, we'll just make do as go. What's this, Brian Bowden? Said he's supposed to come do some research in Jennings State. What's going on? Brian Bowden said that he's supposed to come do some research in Jennings State Forge, which is like 2 minutes from my house. It becomes, I guess I'll join along. That would be great. That would be good.
Now, watch out for Bowden. He likes to pee in front of Dogman. So.
Yep, and he carries a sharp machete.
If you meet him, get him to tell you that story in person. Hey, Ted Branson, I didn't say hi to you.
Ted. And Lord Connor. Don't forget Lord Connor. Did you bring whiskey balls tonight, Ted? I'm a little hungry. All right, so Alcatraz is what we're talking about. Escape is what's on the menu, because here's the thing. Last night I said something, Steve, and I wanted to get your take on it. I miss you when you're not here, my friend.
Yep.
But I understand when you can't be, but I just wish we could do this every night. I really do. It's just nice to sit
we
back.
had it on TV last night, but I kept falling asleep. I've been
When you're sick, the whole world slows down.
Yeah.
It does. You got to do what you got to do. I mean, you don't want to eat. You don't want everything is just upside down. So don't worry about that. But I was talking last night about the outrageous conditions in this place. This place was called the Rock for a reason. And when you think about when they opened it up and started really pushing forward, this was like the Titanic of prisons, the unsinkable Alcatraz. You can't escape from it. This is going to be a hard prison for hard prisoners. And they played on that to the point of this is for the worst of the worst. Now, when you look through some of the people that were there, they weren't really, but they were made to be once they got there. So your original crime might have been you robbed a bank with a toy gun and you got caught and nobody got killed. But when you went to prison, you tried to escape. And once you tried to escape, then you were a really bad dude. So you wound up in Alcatraz. So just because you're in Alcatraz doesn't mean you're a mass murderer. There's plenty of them, plenty of bad guys. But some of the people that were there were just caught up in the system. And I was thinking last night about how their tactics, there's more than one prison, more than one place that's like this, that just says, well, we're just going to break them, like taking a wild horse and breaking them, and they just put them in solitary confinement. The Birdman of Alcatraz, who he never had birds when he was there, the reason he got moved there is because he killed a guard in his last prison. So they put him here, and he had no privileges or anything like that there. In fact, he was in solitary confinement for 17 years.
Yeah.
If somebody said 17 hours to you, it would be a lot. And then, 17 years in solitary confinement. So when you see some of these rooms and some of these things, keep that in mind. And I'm going to run a little video here that I put together that's going to give you a little bit of the facts of the evolution of Alcatraz. And the funniest part, I think, is when they're telling all about the indigenous people and what they thought about the island. Of course, they believed it to be cursed and not a place that you would want to ever stay. In fact, they put their insane and their unruly there to try to keep them, contained, I guess. Of course, there wasn't any buildings there then. But then all of a sudden you got this one guy and he said, and then this guy came around in the 1700s and discovered the whole place. It just blows my mind. But here we go. So if you need a break, you got about 9 minutes, kiddo. If you need to go heat up a bottle or something, or check on Nick and see if she needs.
I'm going to go check on it.
Okay, and here it is. Alcatraz. We'll be right back. Well, what do you think? I mean, I look at that, I see so many things. I spoke on it last night about personally why I would not go and sit in one of those cells and try to communicate, And 17 years in solitary. This is what I'm saying, Froze. What is that fixing? What are we doing? How much did it cost the taxpayers? What's going on? I'm looking at all these different penitentiaries and situations, and there's some that I'm really glad to see. Like, I hate to say it, but El Salvador, I mean, Brule did an amazing job. Went in there and just cleaned that place up. The number one in murder capital of the world. And I don't know who's doing the study and who's doing the poll, but just trust me, you can go look it up, search the facts, and please come back and correct me if I'm wrong. But when he took over, it was high up there. And now it's the least from in just a couple of years. And one of the reasons was, was just zero tolerance, double up your military, went out there, got arrested all the gang members, brought them in. And that was it. Zero tolerance, and very, very structured. Never getting out. We could sit and talk all night long about how long can you help these people? Can they ever be? Here's the thing. I think if you triaged it, some could, because I don't think some ever had the chance. And we talked about it last night. It's like Bonnie and Clyde. His older brothers were boosting cars when he was growing up. In the Depression, he's in the middle America, in the Dust Bowl during the Depression. People are stealing chickens. They're doing whatever they can do to make it through. Banks are foreclosing. People are mad at the banks. People are mad at the people who have money, and watching your kids starve and you're sick. We just talked about, Steve's dear family going through being sick. Half of you guys have been sick over the past month. Right? How hard was it to get through those couple of days, that week? And then if you had kids sick too, imagine that being in the Depression. And there's no hope. There's no chance. There's no jobs. There's no cars. There's no, there might be bread lines if you're near a town. I mean, just think about that. So what are those kids growing up in, seeing their older brother, they're boosting cars to get a little money to whatever. They grow up into it. What kind of chance did that kid have? And now we can look at Bonnie and Clyde and how they wound up. FBI on both sides ambushed them. We could argue again all night long. Were they righteous in doing so? Were they doing their job? Was it justice? Was it vengeance? Was it overkill? Was it not? The point is, young boy, his surrounding in the culture, everything that's around him, winds up getting overkilled, in a hail of bullets next to his girlfriend after robbing banks and multiple other people getting killed. So if we could go back to what started it, the seed of that despair and that hopelessness and that anger and that vengeance and that, that grows up into just this jaded person that's just got that 1,000-yard stare. And then you throw them in prison in solitary confinement or in Gen Pop with a bunch of people that are similar. And you've got caged animals that, what are you going to do? 3 hots and a cot for the next 50 years. What are we doing? Something's wrong, I don't know. I just think that if we could stop trying, you wouldn't have to break the spirit of a person who's gone in that direction if we stopped breaking our kids. Maybe we should start there. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I agree. It's an endless cycle, or vicious cycle, rather.
Yep. And I just, I feel strongly about it.
California, you got that 3 strikes law. You got people in there that's been caught shoplifting 3 times, serving along murders,
That's still
rapists,
going
and
on?
bank robbers. I think so.
It's just, we got to do better. We just got to do better. And I think this place is the epitome of that, because here you put people in this place, and the only thing I listened to some inmates talk about it, and they said at any given time there were 50 different groups of people that were, actively trying to escape. They were either in on a plan or whatever. I heard one heartbreaking, and I know it sounds terrible. I have no idea what this guy did to get there. So please don't hold it against me if he killed 12 people. I'm just talking about from this point on. He spent probably a year gathering up little tiny pieces of military uniforms, because they used to clean the uniforms for military base close by, whatever, in their laundry. So over years, if you imagine how long this took, that he could piece together a uniform that was good enough to pass, at least briefly, a brief visual of it, right? He finally gets it all put together. And when these military ships are coming in and out, these boats coming in and out for whatever routine they had going on, he puts on this thing, this uniform, this makeshift uniform, and he escapes, and he stows away in one of these boats, Steve. And he's gone. He's free. He's off the island. He's free. Except this time, the boat didn't go to the mainland like it usually did. It stopped off at another military island. He got off, got caught. The one time it did, in for a very long time. And you can't help but think that's just like a gut punch. When you hear that, you just go, oh man, because we want the underdog to make it. And tonight's story is like that. So anyhow, was there anything else in that you saw? Did you remember and recall that people actually broke onto Alcatraz?
Yeah.
I had forgotten all about it until I started studying this. I remember when that happened. It was a big deal. It was a really big deal. But yeah, crazy. So what are we talking about? We are talking about the escape who else was in this flick? Steve, Escape from Alcatraz, 1979. It was Clint Eastwood.
I remember Clint Eastwood. I can't remember. There were some good actors in it, but I can't remember.
Let's take a quick look at the trailer and see if we can't pick us out of one or two. Wow. Boy, is that a blast from the past or what, Steve?
Yeah, I saw that in the theater.
Did you? No way. Did you really?
Yeah,
79. I was a
79,
junior in
I
high
was
school.
in high school, yeah.
I was in high school too. Junior in high school. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I didn't see that one in the theater. I remember seeing it on the big Zenith though in the living room. That's crazy. But yeah, the way that warden was and stuff. And there's a lot of Hollywood in that, but the way they went about it, I think it was very close. And if you think about the time, I mean, these guys worked on it, I think 15 months, something like that. From plant,
Yeah.
well, probably
They had all
longer
the
than
time
that.
in the world to work on it. So there you
That's
go.
it. I've heard stories where they would take a certain cotton string they had and soak it in something and just put what was the abrasive they put on it? It was something really it wasn't cornmeal, it was something else that they had. Maybe it was cement dust or something. And they would roll the string in the cement dust, and then they would work on one bar.
Yeah.
And they said they give the amount of time it took to saw through that bar, and it took 5 years or some kind of mess. Can you imagine 5 years every night soaking your string? And the thing with the guy with the paper clip working on the bar above him in the cot took him a year and a half to carve out a shiv so he could kill his mate, and carved it out of his bed. It took him a year. Nothing but time. But you have to wonder about it. What a life wasted. I mean, could they not make a prison system when they go out and maybe teach them something? I mean, you could pull lawyers out of there that could help other inmates. You could have, people that are interested in medicine help heal people. I mean, of course, all under supervision. There's got to be good prison systems that have people better than just like slave labor, like working in fast food restaurants and cleaning up garbage off the highways, But there seems to be, there could be more for that, because you have their full freaking attention. Teach them something. You know what I mean? All right. So in 79, they make a movie about this wonderful place. And if you want to read, if you like reading a little bit, how's your throat?
Yeah.
Can you see
That's
it?
good.
We'll run through this. I pulled out a couple of highlights of a little bit of this, and then we'll watch a little bit about the actual escape and whether or not you think that they actually got away with it. Go ahead, Steve.
Okay. It was known as a place to be avoided by Native Americans who believed it to contain evil spirits. These Native Americans call the Ohlone, I hope I got that right, a Miwok Indian word meaning Western people, often utilize the island as a place of isolation or banishment for members violating tribal laws. Alcatraz was utilized also as a hiding place for many Indians attempting to escape from the California mission system. Alcatraz was first discovered in 1775 by Spanish explorer Juan Miguel de Ayala.
It
He
kills
named the
me.
island.
I'm sorry. It kills
Yeah,
me
I
because
know.
he discovered it.
Oh,
He just
look.
stumbled upon it in
Yeah.
1700s. I'm
He
sorry.
named the island La Isla de los Alcatraces, meaning Island of Pelicans. As a result of the influx of people to San Francisco at the time of the California Gold Rush, construction of a fortress began by U.S. Army engineers in 1853 at what later became known as Alcatraz. Due to the higher rate of crime during the gangster era, Alcatraz began a makeover in 1934 to make it better suited for hardened criminals.
Look at him. He's so happy he found that island. He said, he's
Yeah.
just sitting here. Nobody's
Look,
on it.
there's
Nobody knew
nobody's
nothing
island.
about
Somebody
it.
left an island out here and I
Yeah,
found it.
just stumbled right on it. Looked like this. Now, look at this picture. I want you to look to the right, down to the kind of like the below right corner. This empty shell of a house here, that was the warden's house. So that's where all the parties were thrown and everything else. So you'd sit in this prison and listen to the waves hitting that island and have to listen to them giving parties and everything else. That's also the place where one of the warden's wives, I guess, committed suicide or whatever, and her ghost haunt that.
And that was another reason the cost ran so high. Everything had to be brought over by the mainland.
yeah.
There was no way to truck anything in there or bring it in by train. Had to be loaded onto boats, brought over and unloaded.
Yep, and all the guards and a lot of the guards' families and everything else lived right here on this island. Everything was done right there.
Yeah,
So,
those barracks down there in
Yep.
the lower right.
yep, absolutely correct. Yep.
There have been several deaths at Alcatraz. 8 people were killed by inmates during Alcatraz time as a prison, along with 5 inmates who committed suicide. 15 people died from natural causes. Surprised it's not more than that.
All right, well, we'll come back to this one because that's the ghost. We're going to finish up the night with that, and I'm going to play this little thing. But before I do, I was talking earlier about if we put it out there, if we try to do, as light workers. Now, as Steve says, your mileage may vary. Everybody has days where they've got just enough light to get through their day, and that's just, you have to do what you got to do. But if you got a little extra to put out there, absolutely do it, because I believe it reverberates back. And I've told you guys so many times that I get comments and I get people that jump in a video from a year ago or whatever it may be. And they tell me that for whatever reason, something we said, one of our guests said, one of the subjects helped them through something. And that's the whole reason we do the show. It's not just to help you understand ghosts and help explain all it, because we're just talking about it. But when you get a comment like this, and I know Steve gets them all the time too, especially with what you do on your channel, it's just amazing. Missing persons and mysteries, if you don't know. But I wanted to share this with you because you guys are a part of this too. And you when you jump in the chat and you put your information in there and your ideas and your thoughts and your experiences, you don't know that you might be helping somebody that's not even here yet. It just blows my mind. This is a great way for spirit guides to get information to other people. And here's proof. And now I'm not going to say her name because she didn't give me permission, but I figured I can read the story because she put it in the public comments. So I figure we're okay, but I'll just call her N. Okay. Cisco, you played a very important part of my life roughly a year ago. You were speaking about doctors and how one gets treated, dismissed, and here's some morphine, or here's a prescription. It's all in your head. Well, I demanded my partner to see another doctor and walk in that room with intent. Boy, I'm always saying that, aren't I? And long story short, you guided me that day. My partner is getting a massive compensation payout within a month or 2. You helped me during the COVID days, working the night shift in an aged care. From all of me, thank you. Love from Australia. And so don't think you're not part of something that puts light out there, that gets people through something you can't even imagine. Imagine working the night shift in an aged care facility during COVID, and some small thing that we said or we did or we put out there, some video, a song, a smiling dog, whatever it might have been, help that person. This is worth doing. And I think it's worth spending extra time on our kids and grandkids and kids in the neighborhood and kids in our tribe or whatever, to help them not grow up to be people like this that wind up in places like this. Do you see what I'm saying? It makes sense, right?
It
Okay.
does indeed.
Well, there we go. We're all a part of that. That belongs to everybody. So let your light shine. All right. What do we got next here, Mr. Stockton? Let's do Did you have anything you wanted to say about the cards and stuff we just read? I mean, I didn't even know about
Yeah,
uh,
I didn't know that
the
much of the
island.
history of it, but
Yeah, the island having a I think it's this one. Yeah, it is. Yep. All right. I hate that it flips it like that. Here we go. Let's see. Now this is basically landing on Frank Morris because Frank Morris was the one who found the weakness in the fact that there was no concrete behind a certain wall. Now, remember, if you saw the movie, if you've heard the story, they went through a vent to get up through the walls that were empty, so they could work on pipes and things like that. And that was one of the weaknesses to the building. Don't ever forget that. If you're ever trapped somewhere, there's a weakness somewhere. Just be calm and think about it and find the weakness and work on that and get out. Don't ever quit. That's why I love escape stories. All right, here we go.
Got my raincoat, which wound up
Oops.
In Alcatraz Prison, the night begins like any other.
Okay, rack 'em.
Quiet. Orderly. But behind the seeming normality, 3 prisoners are about to attempt the impossible. They are going to escape from America's most secure federal penitentiary. A forbidding fortress rising out of the San Francisco Bay. Alcatraz is home to America's most hardened criminals. This is where the likes of Al Capone and Machine Gun Kelly do hard time. By the 1960s, prisoners know that Alcatraz is the end of the line.
I can't imagine that boat ride, Steve. I really can't.
Alcatraz was considered the most secure prison in the United States.
The prisoner's plan begins with the discovery of a single weak point. An old air ventilator located in the roof above B block isn't sealed with concrete like the others.
Wow.
By dismantling the ductwork, a prisoner could squeeze through the opening and onto the roof.
I wouldn't be able to stop thinking about it.
But to get to the ventilator, they have to get out of their cells. Other than the impregnable cell door, a 5 by 9 inch metal grate is the only exit point. Just inches behind the grate is a narrow utility corridor. Pipes snake up the walls, directly to the target ventilator. Get through the grate, and the prisoners can get onto the roof. A network of conspirators provides the necessary tools.
Mostly it was cell house workers who were passing around items. Maintenance workers, kitchen workers, electrician, guys in the clothing room.
Darwin Kuhn is a former Alcatraz inmate.
John Anglin come to me one day on the yard, and he said, "We're going to slip this place if we can, and I need some help with some tools." I said, "Well, whatever I can do, John, I'll do for you, you know."
They build a drill out of spare machine parts. And they use sharpened cafeteria spoons to dig through the concrete wall. They hide their progress with false grates, meticulously crafted from cardboard sheets and tobacco boxes. It takes months to complete the job. But on the night of June the 11th, they are finally ready to go.
Lights out.
But there's another big problem to take care of.
Correctional officers were constantly patrolling all through the night. They made an official count to see if everyone was where they were supposed to be.
If their empty beds are spotted, Morris and the Englands know the game is up. Their solution is the plan's masterstroke. Using wire frames, plaster, soap, flesh-colored paint, and human hair, the inmates make detailed replicas of their own heads.
Clarence Anglin, the youngest brother, was a barber. So the hair they put on those dummy heads, he carried in his pockets.
They place them carefully on their pillows and say goodnight to Alcatraz.
Who doesn't remember that part from the movie? How creepy that was. Little bit of hair at a time in your pocket. It's tenacity, man. You gotta want it.
The plan goes off without a hitch. But there's one final obstacle between the prisoners and freedom:
That's what I'm saying, Chris.
the San Francisco Bay.
That's exactly what I'm saying. I just want to stop it there just for a second in case anybody wants to comment on what we've already seen, because this is like intense. This blows my mind. Your adrenaline starts going and you're just thinking, oh my God, you know, what it must have been like at this moment for these guys. You know, they'd worked so hard to get here. This, I think the reason the story has carried on so much is because we all feel this way. I mean, how many people in the chat right now would do this? Do you feel that you would have the characteristics to pull something like this off, at least to try it? And I'm interested to see how many people would just like, no, I'm just going to sit here and do my time and I'm going to finish it out and I'm going to go for the parole. I'm going to, you know, but if you don't have hope, Steve, you know, you're going to be there the rest of your life. What do you got to lose, right?
Yeah, seriously.
I mean, here's the thing. When you're a soldier, I'm going to tell you right now, hands down, I don't have to think about it. I would never quit trying to get out of there. Never. You could catch me, put me in
lyrics,
right back.
Freedom's just another word for nothing left to
Nothing
lose.
left to lose.
There you go.
Chris Christopherson, isn't that Bobby McGee?
Yeah.
But yeah, I would never stop, because that's just one thing you're trained as. I mean, we were taught that, but I don't think that I had to be in the Army for them to teach you that. You don't squeal, you don't rat, you don't talk, and you never quit trying to escape. Period.
Even a fish wouldn't get caught if he kept his mouth shut.
I mean, that's just the way it is. So when you see them going through this meticulous stuff now, understanding that they're showing them grabbing spoons and things like that, like it's, you know, they're just sneaking them in. This is like The Great Escape with Steve McQueen, and, you know, everybody knows the movie, right? But they actually had like a silhouette for each knife. So if one was missing, they could see real quick if it was missing. I guess the guards in the kitchen or whoever was in the kitchen. Everything was accounted for. The constant counting of head counts in this, you know, one guard would count, the next guard would count, the next one would count. The fact that they found a spot within that they could move this way is mind-blowing. Then you've got the whole propaganda of the sharks. Now, in reality, the sharks that were around there at the time weren't really man eaters. They did have some great whites going back and forth. So all I would have to do is see one great white, and I'm like, okay, I just have to build something where I'm not touching the water. That's where my mind would be, because I'm not going in the water. So I would come up with something. But they did. They took 50 raincoats and put them together and made the glue and got a sewing machine. I mean, this was amazing. Steve, what do you want to say?
Your stream got suspended, but I think it's back.
Is it back? Oh, on the YouTube?
Yeah.
All right. Is it back now?
I believe so.
All right, guys. If you're over on YouTube, did it stop there? Am I back? Okay, they don't want me to see this. So, all right. Well, let's take this one off, and we'll just go to the next one and see what happens.
Yeah, they were crafty. They had to be smart. They had to be at least 3 steps ahead of the guards and the warden and the powers that be.
Right.
A lot of cleverness on their part, I will say, and more than a little bit of luck.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's just the way it is. So what they did was they took the 50 raincoats, put them together. They've got a concertina that they're blowing it up with, a makeshift. What do you call that? That's
Bellows.
it, right? One of the little musical instruments, like a concertina. I think that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they blow it up with that, and they get out there, and that's it. The guards find out. They're looking. They right away said that there was no evidence found. There was nothing found. There was no bodies found. That they must have gone. The water was too cold. Now, these guys, the 2 brothers, used to go ice fishing, and they used to jump in the water and do that. What do you call that? Like a plunge, like an ice plunge?
Yeah, the polar bear plunge or whatever.
Like kind of like that back in the day. And they did not really, shy away from, cold water. But they also made life jackets out of those raincoats, Steve. Yeah. So they got the thing is the FBI was putting out that nobody.
The amazing thing to me was how they stored all this stuff without. 50 raincoats. That's a closet full of them.
Absolutely. And I mean, what they would do was, one guy would come in the yard how did they not miss 50 raincoats though? And all these people not having raincoats in the yard, because they're issued, by the prison system.
No,
and they were like a canvas, like a rubbery kind of canvas.
Yeah.
But they put them all together, and they also made the life vests as well. Now, the FBI swears that there was no evidence that was ever found. But there are documents that say the raft was found on Angel Island. And then they came out and said no cars were missing, no boats were stolen. But there are documents, if you go back and you look, that a car was stolen off of Angel Island that very same night. So did they get away? Did they drown in the current? Did the cold water get them? And would you believe, chat, that 3 bodies would go under and nothing would show up? Could the current have carried it out to the ocean, Steve? And then they're just gone, the sharks ate them. Not even a foot
it's
found.
It's possible, but not very likely. I think there'd be something.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, so let's see. Is this one? This is the one they don't like. Let's try this one. All right. Here we go. Let's give this one a whirl. This one is about 5 minutes, I think. I got to find it here. No, not that one. They got to come up with a better way of doing this thing. Letters chest. That's it. No, it's up here. Boop.
The spoon proves mightier than the bars at supposedly escape-proof Alcatraz Prison. 3 bank robbers serving long terms scratched their way through grills covering an air.
Be right back getting hot water.
Pipe and disappeared from the forbidding rock in San Francisco Bay. It appears to be the first successful escape in the history of the maximum security prison, and the flight is attributed by Warden Olin Blackwell to the deteriorating condition of the prison. Crumbling concrete and eroding metals, with $5 million needed for repairs. men the walls couldn't hold are Frank Morris and John and Clarence Anglin. Authorities believe that Morris, who has a superior IQ, masterminded the escape. Ironically, the wanted posters offer only the nominal reward of $50 each for information leading to the arrest of the prisoners. They painstakingly fashioned dummies of plaster with hair of paintbrush bristles to stand in for them during cell check, while they covered an escape hole with a cardboard grill. All of this was within easy visual range of the guards in the gun galleries. They climbed drain pipes to the top of the cell block and then slid down vents to the ground. Again, all of this within sight of guards. The escape triggered the greatest manhunt in San Francisco's history, as agents of the FBI, Coast Guardsmen, Highway Patrol, sheriff's deputies, and local police joined in the search. Whatever their fate, the three convicts have apparently accomplished a feat that many have tried with no success.
I don't know where they come from, but I know that that's got to be wrong, because I know if Frank went to my daddy's sister house in Detroit, Michigan, I know that. And I do know that after, I'll say, 2 months, Frank was back in California. Now, he called me. I talked to him. I saw him. And that's all hogwash to me. I don't believe it because I know it's a lie, so I don't waste my time on it.
I believe
I've
it.
heard that myself, but I just write it off and go about my business. Because that's if you know anything, there ain't no use trying to convince nobody, because I didn't care that much about it. But I know what I've seen, I know what I've done, and that's enough for me. Now, if this thing shows on the air, you're going to have people coming out of the woodwork.
What do you think about that? Now, I remember when I was watching the Unsolved Mysteries. So Unsolved Mysteries ended, what, late 90s? Was it into the 2000s maybe? Now, this was when my kids were kind of little. So I would say it was probably in the 90s that I saw the story on this. And it was intriguing then, you know, and it was one of those stories kind of like D.B. Cooper and all these others that kind of keep coming up. And I remember in the Unsolved Mysteries, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, if you remember, that a postcard showed up. And supposedly 2 of them were in Brazil. And they had a picture of them on the beach, did they not? That came through with one of the family members. This was another family member that was related to the third guy that was not in that picture.
Yeah,
that was the brother.
That's been a long time ago, but that sounds correct. I'll have to find that episode and watch it.
Yeah, pretty neat.
Love
so
Unsolved
look,
Mysteries.
Unsolved Mysteries of Escape from Alcatraz, something like that. It'll come up probably on YouTube. But there's one of the family members saying that they saw him. He showed up at his, at the dinner table or whatever holiday it was. I tend to believe that. I believe these guys got away. I really do, because 2 of them were really good swimmers. They had the raft. The raft was found washed on the shore. I would have liked to known how far up, but from the pictures that I've seen, there was only I think 1 or 2 out there of the cops who found the raft standing next to it. I don't know if they found it was still in the water and they pulled it up on the raft. You know what I mean? I don't know if they're crime scene photos or just newspaper photos. I don't know how accurate they are, but if it was found on the island up out of the break, you got to imagine they pulled it onto shore when they got off.
Yeah.
And there was footprints found leaving from where the raft was. So that's also from an on-the-scene person who saw it early. So, take that with a grain of salt. I don't know the provenance of that information or that evidence, but it's out there. And I think it's really interesting. You know, Steve, what have you heard about that? Did you hear about the evidence and the letter, the postcard,
Yeah, I
and all
heard
that?
about the postcard and the stuff that they found, and of course the FBI tried to downplay it, and oh,
Yes,
they didn't make it, and this, that, and the other. But I like to think they did. I hope so.
I hope so too. All right, let's see. This was a little bit of evidence that popped up. I think it's in the right order. So I went back and I pulled a couple of little news clips, you know, from the local news, whoever's doing a story on it, probably out of California. And the interesting thing is like I said earlier, you know, you get it in the 70s, you had the movie and you probably had a book. There was probably more than one book written on it. And then you've got in the 80s or the early 90s, you've got the Unsolved Mystery comes out with the whole story, and it just keeps going and it keeps rolling. But as you start peeling it back, more evidence, just like all these cases, starts coming to the surface. So let's see what they found 55 years later after the Alcatraz escape.
Was a legendary escape from a place that was supposed to be inescapable. 55 years ago this month, 3 men pulled off the impossible, breaking out of Alcatraz.
Only on 5 tonight, Betty Yu takes us to some rare locations on the rock to show us how they got out.
There's something about this old prison that brings nearly 4,000 visitors by the boatload to this island on any given day. Alcatraz was a federal penitentiary for nearly 3 decades. In that time, there were 36 escape attempts. 23 were caught, 6 were shot and killed, and 2 drowned. But 3 men, brothers John and Clarence Anglin and Frank Morris, have never been found.
They crawled out of their cells up on the roof and escaped into the San Francisco Bay. And that, you got to give it to them. They broke the system.
Sure did.
For 55 years, that legendary escape is still one of the greatest mysteries in American history.
Welcome to Alcatraz.
The allure partly fueled by popular shows and Hollywood, including the movie Escape from Alcatraz, starring Clint Eastwood.
And what they did is
I got an inside look at the infamous cells, normally off limits to the public, where the trio of bank robbers began their months-long plot.
I'm standing in John Anglin's jail cell. It is 5 by 9 in the size of a standard pool table. If you take a look behind me, that's the air vent that he widened to escape through.
They literally drill small holes around the existing vent and then push that concrete in.
This photo shows the kind of meticulous work they did around the vent with the drill. On the night of June 11th, they were ready to go. After squeezing through this cement wall, they climbed up a network of pipes and plumbing before they made it here to the roof.
X marks the spot. This was the actual portal to freedom for those 3 escapees. After they knocked off the air vent, they ended up here on the roof of the cell house and ran straight to freedom.
Once they were on the ground, they went underneath the water tower and scrambled down to the smokestack at the north end, inflated their raft, and paddled away, never to be seen again.
The inmates used 50 raincoats to make that raft.
Look at that.
In a secret workshop they set up on top of their cells. Paddle-like pieces of wood and one of the life vests washed up near Angel Island. What was left behind in their cells? Dummy heads made of plaster, paper mache, paint, and real human hair to fool the guards.
Very sophisticated with all the moving parts. They did a lot of work. They read Popular Mechanics magazine. They had access to stuff from the library.
This is the cover of that 1960 Popular Mechanics issue, found in one of the cells.
I wish I had
featuring
the
a how-to on raft making techniques. Supervisory Deputy U.S. Marshal Michael Dyke has been working this case for the last 14 years. He still gets 1 or 2 leads a month. Most turn into dead ends.
There's theories about if they left at a certain time, the tides would have been in their favor and they could have made it ashore. There's theories that they were in South America. My general sense of it, there's a more likelihood that they didn't make it.
The Federal Bureau of Prisons say that they drowned once they got off of Alcatraz and their bodies were swept out to the Pacific Ocean. End of story.
If the men are alive today, Frank Morris would be 90 years old. John and Clarence Anglin, 86 and 87. Using age progression technology, the FBI released these images of what they might look like.
I believe they made it to shore. No one knows, they might be in Brazil. I doubt that.
William Baker was 23 when he did time on Alcatraz. He knew Frank Morris.
He was a very quiet guy, very patient guy. He was a guy that could actually do things, mechanically.
The men's ingenuity was as great as their desperation to escape from Alcatraz, now one of America's most popular tourist attractions. In San Francisco, Betty Yu, KPIX 5.
Don't do the crime if you can't do the time there, Steve.
Yep.
I mean, don't do it. I mean, every time I hear that door slam, it just gets you. Can you imagine being trapped in the rest of your life? And like Birdman Alcatraz, 17 years in solitary. If you could see solitary, the way it's set up, it was in the video that I did in the very beginning. You can see how the whole line was, and they just open the door. There's no light. There's no window, no crack, no nothing. It's just dark. And you're in there with boxer shorts and nothing else for 17 years. I mean, I just can't wrap my head around that. It's like the Tower of London or some dungeon mess. I mean, how could we not learn something over, 1,000 years to do better,
Seriously.
Well, that's, the FBI is going through all the trouble to make age progression, spend all that money doing that. But they think that they didn't make it, so something's up. Let's see what they found. That was 55 years after. Let's see if 60 years brought forth anything. Ready, Steve?
Yep.
I think I got it.
U.S. Marshals have just released age progression images of convicts who escaped Alcatraz more than 60 years ago. A case that has grabbed the attention of Americans for decades.
If they didn't think they escaped, why would they be bothering to do age progression photos?
Doesn't make any sense.
On whether these men are still alive. And
we just saw these from 5 years ago.
Obtained evidence has prompted
the news
authorities
is
to reopen the case.
Fake news.
As late as 2018. Senior national correspondent Brian Nenton joining us live with what we have learned tonight.
Again.
And does this crack the case wide open? Brian.
Here we go, Brian.
Yeah, it really is crazy, Marnie, that it's been 60 years and there is now this new evidence. What we've learned about this case, it sounds like it's right out of a movie. These prisoners actually had a little workshop that they created up in the ceiling of the prison, and they used body doubles with real hair to fool the prison guards.
That's
60 years after three men infamously dug their way out of the maximum security prison at Alcatraz Island, federal officials now are asking citizens to be on the lookout. Clarence Anglin, John Anglin, and Frank Morris remain wanted fugitives for their June 11th, 1962 escape from Alcatraz, where they were serving time for armed bank robberies. The three men spent more than a year organizing and planning their escape, setting up a secret workshop on top of their cells, as well as stockpiling the tools and resources needed to make the dangerous trek.
Telling me, never give up.
After squeezing through a vent and scaling pipes that led to the prison roof, the trio traversed 100 feet across the rooftop and then carefully maneuvered down 50 feet of piping to the ground. After reaching the outer walls, they launched a makeshift raft of more than 50 raincoats in hopes of making it off the island. The following morning, guards awoke to find 3 detailed makeshift heads made up of plaster, paint, and real human hair in their cell beds.
The guards went through the cell block and used their flashlights. They found 3 decoyed heads lying in the beds. The decoyed heads were made of soap, of wax. They were made of plaster, but they were good enough to fool the guards at that moment.
The prison was immediately put into lockdown, but the convicts had already gained a 10-hour lead on investigators. Authorities worked for weeks to locate the inmates, but found no sign of any evidence. Federal officials later said they believed they drowned. Now, 60 years later, theories have tested whether or not that's true. A raft was recovered on a nearby island shortly after their escape, as well as accounts of a car being stolen the night of the men's disappearance. In 2013, authorities received a handwritten letter by a man claiming to be John Algen, asking for a light sentence in return for medical attention. The letter forced U.S. Marshals to reopen the case. Now, years later, investigators hope the new re-aged images
Looks
will
like
help
Kelsey
crack.
Grammer on the
Investigators
left.
will continue to work the case as long as leads come in.
Pretty incredible to think that these guys could still be out there. And you heard the U.S. Marshals there say it is definitely possible. So much mystery that surrounds Alcatraz, Marnie. We've also learned that many of the records kept on all the prisoners, including these, have mysteriously disappeared over the years.
Wow, 60 years, and they may still be out there. All right, Brian, thank you. Thank you for watching.
Well, how about that? That's pretty cool. So as the years peel by, the decades go, we start realizing how much they lied to us when this happened, as well as, like, is it any big surprise on so many different things? But of course, if we had looked back and said, I think that they got away or whatever, you'd have been laughed at the, Thanksgiving dinner table or whatever, as a conspiracy theorist. But now we're looking back where the United States Marshals are actually spending, like Steve said, spending the money and the time to make these age progression for drawings and everything else. And now we've got another handwritten letter to go along with the postcard that came up in Unsolved Mysteries in the 90s. And this one is asking, actually what the letter was stating is that the brothers both were still alive. They both needed medical attention and were afraid to go into the hospital. I think one claimed he had some type of really, a bad illness. I can't remember what it was. It could have been cancer, could have been something else. But he was saying, look, I'm going to need hospital attention. You can put me in a prison hospital or whatever. We've had our time. This is us. Can we get a short sentence, something like that? And I don't know what happened. They didn't respond. What happened to the letter, I don't know. But that's really saying something. Who'd take the time to go through that, Steve?
Yep.
I mean,
I agree. 100%.
So I think I've got one more here that kind of tells a little bit more about the letter. I think this is it. Yeah, I think so. Because I wanted you guys to hear what they had found out about that. I think it's
the breakout of 3 inmates from the famous prison in 1962 has been the subject of wild speculation for more than half a century. Now a handwritten letter is again raising questions about whether the men survived the frigid waters and deadly currents of San Francisco Bay. John Blackstone is on the water just off Alcatraz Island with new details about the mystery. John, good morning.
Good morning. Well, when this was a prison, we might have been shot if we got this close to Alcatraz on a boat. Here on San Francisco Bay, it was thought the cold water, the currents, and strong tides made escape from the prison impossible. But for 55 years, a mystery has lingered. Did 3 inmates actually escape and survive? Ever since brothers John and Clarence Anglin, along with inmate Frank Morris, disappeared from Alcatraz in 1962, the official story has been they didn't make it.
The Federal Bureau of Prisons say that they drowned once they got off of Alcatraz and their bodies were swept out to the Pacific Ocean.
But now, a letter obtained by CBS affiliate KPIX claims all 3 lived well into old age. My name is John Anglin, the letter begins. I escaped from Alcatraz in June 1962. Yes, we all made it that night, but barely. Anglin's cell is now a favorite stop for tourists who can see the vent he squeezed through when he and the others made their break, then floated off the island in a homemade raft.
It's always been talked about through the family.
David Widener is a nephew of John and Clarence Anglin.
Yes, my grandmother received roses for several years after the escape.
No indication that it was really from your uncle.
There you go.
Actually,
Steve.
yes, John and Clarence's signature was on those cards.
The letter was received by San Francisco police in 2013, but never before made public.
I really haven't come to a conclusion whether I believe that it's John reaching out or not.
The U.S. Marshal Service says the FBI could not determine if it was real. The 3 remain on the Marshal Service most wanted list, along with photos of what they might look like today.
I was awakened by the siren.
At the time of the escape, Jolene Babiak was living on Alcatraz. Her father was acting warden.
I can see why the FBI would consider it inconclusive, because there's no leads here that you can go further with.
The letter makes an offer. If you announce on TV that I will be promised to go to jail for no more than a year and get medical attention, I will write back to let you know exactly where I am. It adds, I am 83 years old and in bad shape. I have cancer.
For him to, say that he had cancer and was dying, I feel like, they should have at least reached out to the family and let them know that the letter existed.
Mm-hmm.
If the three did survive these treacherous waters, as the letters claim, they would have outlived the prison. Alcatraz closed in 1963, the year after the escape. But the mystery remains open. Nora?
John, thank you so much.
Steve, I got to say, I don't know what that makes me, but I just love it. I love to think that they got away.
They made it and lived to old age somewhere.
Yeah. And why they wouldn't reach out. This was 2013. They received a letter and they didn't reach out and say, hey, look, bygones be bygones. You did it. It would have been such a different story. I don't know what kind of life they had on the run. It can't be great, but they're sending roses. We've got the postcard. We've got a picture. We've got all this other stuff. I think if we can look at it to where at such an awful place, we've got such a good story of some guys that probably, who knows what happened to them growing up. I don't know each one of their stories, but I know a little bit more about the brothers. I know Frank Morris had a very high IQ. I mean, I think he was in the top percentile, and he's the one that came up with a lot of the plan. And but everybody contributed. Everybody was working together. The prisoners. It took a lot of hands to do this, and to think of the hope that it gave and the spirit it put back into these people that were human beings. Whatever they did, they were human beings, and they got a little spark of hope. And on top of that, I think it gave people root for them, not only because they're the underdog, but they want to think that in their hearts, I guess, or in their minds, if anything ever happened to them, that they'd have hope to get out too. And, I think that's what this whole thing is about. It's such an interesting story and still a mystery, and probably always will be.
Yeah.
Until somebody's found. But I've got just a couple more cards and we can get on out of here, because it's not just us who feels this way. I grabbed a couple of comments from under some of the things that I was watching on this, and it's everybody everywhere. This is from 10 years ago. Steve, you want to read it?
Yeah.
Can you see it?
I know these men were no saints, but their desire for freedom is admirable. Their escape demonstrates the beauty of human ingenuity. No, their plans embody it. They could not be held down. Fatigue, death, nothing stopped them from escaping and getting back their freedom. And the fact that their bodies were not found makes me believe they were able to escape.
Absolutely. Isn't that cool? I mean, it's just the inspiration it gives people. And I'm kind of doing this too, to give this to you guys, because whoever's listening to this, you might have your own what you might feel like you're in a prison, or you're you're getting boxed in or whatever. And I think there's always a way that we can find to remove ourselves and put ourselves in a better space. Don't ever let anybody tell you that you have to stay where you are and you don't have a choice, because you always do. You can always get out, even if it takes a while, to dig a hole through that concrete wall with a plastic spoon. You just do it, and you never give up. Here's another one.
They made it, for sure. The government made a cover-up so they did not look like idiots. Frank Morris had an IQ of 133. Smart fellow.
Smart fellow. Yep.
How can you not cheer for these guys? I believe they made it and laid low. If I was a guard, I would have just been applauding. Nothing is impossible.
There you go. Isn't that something? One more.
50 years after the escape, there is absolutely zero evidence of them not surviving. Meanwhile, overwhelming evidence of them being alive. They escaped. The government were defeated by these three. They embarrassed you all.
And that's something else. I just love that. I mean, I had to grab a couple of them because it was just neat to me that, I'm thinking I'm watching some of these shows, late at night or whatever, and I'm fitting them in when I can, coming home from work, whatever. And I'm looking at these and I'm going, I can't help but be rooting for these, these guys. And it's just, I'm like, is there something wrong with me? Because they're criminals. They're supposed to be really bad. So I start digging into the stuff that they did. And again, like I said, 2 of the brothers robbed a bank, didn't shoot anybody, and they had a toy gun. The reason they wound up in Alcatraz is because they tried to escape from the prison they were just in, and they threw them in the whole bunch. They were trying to prove a point. And like some people said here in the chat too, it was, there's a lot of money in prisons. There's a lot of money in, you're not just making license plates, but believe it or not, that's not just a folk tale. They actually do. But they also use them for lots of different things. Like in certain states, you're going into a Wendy's or McDonald's or Subway. Those are prisoners back there making your sandwich. This is not a joke. In Alabama, they had a work release kind of thing like that. They'd go work and then they come back and they go to, back to the prison at night. So
Goodwill Industries employs them too.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of them do. But to me, like I said, if you could teach them a trade or teach them something else where they actually have a chance to get out into, and then maybe have a work placement halfway kind of thing to where you're helping them get back out into, society again, because that was another thing with Shawshank Redemption that I found very interesting too, where they, got out and it was just like, what do you do? I mean, I've been in here 40 years. The world's kind of different, and they just throw them out into, it used to be what, $10 in a suit, something like that back in the day, Steve. Yeah. So I had, that, like I said, I hope that gives a lot of people hope, but we did this one. I wanted to tell you a little bit about the hope that it gives you too, because Alcatraz, absolutely, like we learned last night, is a hotbed of paranormal activity, supernatural activity, and everything else. And it's not just prisoners there. It's people that lived on the island. It's Native Americans, things that happened before, during the occupation, that time where the Native Americans took over. A 13-year-old girl fell to her death here. I don't know about her, ever hearing from a ghost, but there is a young girl seen here. Some other things happen with people, the families that live there, the guards' families and the wardens' families and people like that. So I'll catch this one because I know you don't feel well, and if you want to do the next one, we can, and then I think we're out of here. The Seebach laundry room holds the ghost of Abby Moldowitz, a prisoner who was violently murdered. Alcatraz has become a must-see destination for paranormal enthusiasts, researchers, and investigators, and psychic Sylvia Brown was among them. She felt a very intense presence in the laundry room in cell block C and also received an impression that something very violent had happened there. Brown accurately described a tall, bald man, the exact appearance of a prisoner named Abby Moldowitz. Moldowitz was known as Butcher and was a hitman before he was arrested. Prison records indicate he had, in fact, died in the laundry room when he was brutally murdered by another inmate. Other mysterious incidents from the same room include a heavy smell of smoke in the air, even though nothing is burning. And I remember when Peter James went through, he also smelled the burning and picked up another ghost that was in the area of the laundry room as well. So this place is just a hotbed. And, I can remember when Sylvia Brown went through this, is going way back, but I do remember her going through place and picking up multiple different impressions that were, according to her, not residual, but actual intelligent hauntings. So there's a lot of people stuck here, Steve. You want to do that one?
Yeah. The 1946 Battle of Alcatraz lasted 2 days and killed 5 people. Bank robber Bernard Paul Coy carefully observed the guards' patterns for several months as he was planning his escape attempt. In May of 1946, he and 5 other men managed to break into a gun cage in cell block C and stole a guard's keys. Unfortunately for them, the key they needed to get out of the prison building was missing, and they were unable to escape. Not letting that stop them, the men took several guards hostage and killed 2 before the Marines were called. 3 of the attempted escapees eventually became trapped in a utility passage where they were killed by gunfire. The event lasted 2 days and became known as the Battle of Alcatraz, the bloodiest escape attempt in the prison's history. Although the passage is concealed from visitors' view with a heavy door, bangs and clanging noises are often heard but disappear once the door is open. Many believe the ghosts of the 3 men killed in the passage are responsible.
Amazing, right? I keep looking at these. I'll grab this one. I keep looking at this island, and I keep thinking about what that must have looked like on that boat trip when you're you're going, you're never getting out of here. You're looking at all the edges. I mean, my eyes would be all over the place trying to get that view, that 40,000 foot view of this thing coming at me that I'm going to be put on, and how am I going to get the hell off of this thing? I mean, it's just such a, I can't find a word to describe it. Just such an ominous visual, Arguably, the most infamous ghost of Alcatraz is that, of course, of Al Capone. While his body lies in the modest grave at Mount Carmel Cemetery in Hillside, Illinois, his spirit still lurks within the walls of Alcatraz. He's often seen there. He's seen in a lot of places, Miami too. During his confinement, Al doesn't want to cross, trust me. His spirit still lurks within the walls of Alcatraz. During his confinement at Alcatraz, Al Capone was in the advanced stages of syphilis. He would often claim he was haunted by ghosts of his victims and would babble and cry in the cell. But remember, when we spoke about it last night, there were several guards, I believe 3 off the top of my head, that actually heard the voice of Jimmy talking to Al. He heard 2 voices, and it was amazing. The conversation I remember them having was something about, well, Al, is Al changing his voice? That's weird. That kind of thing. Like, what's going on? It's to me, it's even more crazy. Like I spoke about it last night. Steve, maybe you'd want to weigh in on this. I was trying to figure out how the energy would work from Jimmy being a victim in St. Valentine's Day Massacre, okay, which occurred, of course, in Chicago. Al Capone was not there on scene when that happened, although later he was blamed for having called for the hit. He was in Miami. So I'm wondering, how in the hell does an earthbound spirit, Jimmy, come from that garage to find Al Capone in his cell at Alcatraz? I mean, I'm trying to figure out how that connection's working. I could see it if they were brothers, if there was a situation where there was a love connection of some sort, or a connection in that way. But how did he would have had to find out about it after death, been aware of the accusation, or at the time it was happening, Al did this. And then that was the last thought in his head as he died. And then he connected to Al's energy just by some metaphysical force. It blows my mind. But do you have an idea of how that could happen? I mean,
I don't know.
It's a puzzle, right?
Yeah, it
because
is. It's a real
what the
head
hell would
scratcher.
connect him to it? He must have been, like I could see this. If this was a movie, I could see the victims of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre hanging around that garage. And then overhearing the cops like, what do you think? Al Capone did it? And right away thinking Al Capone and being angry, and then zippity doo-dah wind up, wherever Al Capone is. Is that how it works? That's crazy. Think about that. That's a good one to ask people about the question, because people, like I said, people who say they're experts in this, throw a question like that at them and see what they come up with.
Yeah, really.
Al Capone found comfort in his banjo, would sit in his bed playing for hours. As syphilis slowly ate away at his brain, they really pushed that syphilis, and he became more and more irrational, the prison guards would frequently hear him begging for mercy from a ghost of James Clark, one of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre victims. He spent his last stretch of his prison sentence in Alcatraz infirmary. Following his release, fellow mobster Jake Guzik said he was nuttier than a fruitcake. In 1969, a park ranger told paranormal investigator that eerie banjo music can sometimes be heard emanating from Al Capone's old cell, the shower room where he used to practice. Whether or not you believe the paranormal tales from Alcatraz, there is no denying that the island has a fascinating history. Whew. Well, there you go. I don't want to go, Steve. I don't want to go visit. I don't want to go on the tour for $53.25.
Seeing it from the overlook was enough.
And I'll go one further. I don't understand how you could be a prisoner on that island and then go back and visit. I mean, I've seen one after the other, at least 25, 30 people that used to be there that, be in the seat next to them. They're sitting with cells in the background and they're having a conversation. You couldn't drag me back on that bitch.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm as serious as a heart attack. How about you guys? Would you go back to visit? And there's some wisdom in this chat. On the way out, let's get some of this. Let me see. Chris, you said something in here. I agreed with you too. I usually do agree with Chris. The U.S. Marshals still have them listed as wanted and have, yep, that's exactly right. And what blows me away is here's this news 5 years later saying that the stuff just came out. People got to do a better look. If you're going to be a journalist, be a good one. I mean, for the love of God, what happened to facts? Because we just saw it 55 years away, and then 5 more years is 60. They're saying they just released. No, they didn't. It's been out for 5 years. We got you. We caught you. Tell the truth for Pete's sake. Oh my gosh, right? Can you imagine being trapped with a horrible cellmate? I can't. No, I can't. And the showers and all the other stuff. Look, if you're going to put people in a cage and treat them like animals, what's going to come out is a more vicious animal, according, I mean, some of them you're never going to be able to help, but they have mental breaks, or they have a chemical imbalance, or they're just broken beyond repair. For Pete's sake, separate those people. I don't know. I don't put me in charge. Bad things will happen. No boxers. That's Hollywood. Oh yeah, just naked, huh? I think they were allowed boxers according to the warden's journals, but I'm sure wardens have lied before. I'm sure. I don't mind being alone. I wanted to mention that. Now, I don't know, Steve. I think I could do it a lot better if I had books. If you had books, you could escape. I think the library is one of the best, the best things to ever happen to a place like that. But to be in there with absolutely nothing and no way of getting out, I can't imagine your mind would break, And I agree with Chris again. I think I would have felt, because now you're looking at a totally different thing. You're looking at it like, okay, you've got 3 desperate men. They're going to steal a car. They probably would have hit somebody over the head if they needed to. They were desperate. They were going to do whatever. I would, I'd have done at that point. You're animalistic. But if there were serial killers released on that, then you have to worry about that. Now somebody really horrible got away. It is different. It's absolutely different. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like if Ted Bundy had escaped, that'd be a whole different scenario.
Yeah.
And he did. He did escape from custody several times, I think.
Yeah, he did. And didn't
courthouse.
Who was the other one that did? Was it Dahmer? I can't. Just that stuff just makes my skin crawl. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Vixen Doe said, "How did Jimmy's spirit cross over water to Alcatraz?" This is again good. Vixen, fantastic. You brought this up last night. That's another thing, Steve, that, spirits aren't supposed to cross over water. I think, Vixen, now don't quote me on this, but I feel like that's more for an entity. And I don't know if it's a body of water, because look, the first time I ever heard that was when I read Amityville. That's when I started hearing about the spirits couldn't cross water. Steve, what do you have on that as far as lore? Top of your head.
I don't know. There's just some seem to be able to, but a lot can't.
Mm-hmm.
I've known a lot of places where if you could make it across the bridge, whatever was after you couldn't follow you.
Yeah. So I think there's some kind of differential there between things, and I don't know what it is. I personally think there's some truth to that. I also think that I heard something recently. Who said it? Believe it or not, I think it was Cat Williams that said that he prays underwater because evil cannot go in, get you underwater. And I thought that was such an interesting comment, and it goes with what Vixen just said too. So there's something to that. I honestly believe too that water is almost like a living entity, like it has its own presence. You know what I mean? It's just like a living, just like so many things here on this earth. I think everything does, just like that whole avatar where the grass and everything's connected. I still think that, as far as energy and stuff. Thank you, Cathedra. Yep, you can get spooky shirts over there at TeePublic. You can get over there on my PayPal, and you can throw a tip in the jar if you like. I'd appreciate it. Everything goes to StreamYard to pay for their wonderful service, and it keeps this channel going, and I appreciate it so very much. Every bit of it goes back into the channel. It gives me a reason to say, hey, validate time to sit down and research and everything else. It makes you feel better, Let's see. What's this one? Chris is saying Dan Terry wrote a book, 2 Henri to die, haunted jails and ghostly tales. Ooh, that sounds like a good one. He suggests that some people feel comfortable and are at home in jail and don't want to go somewhere worse like hell. You know, I agree, because I'm telling you, Al Capone is not cross. He's wandering, and he talks to some mediums and psychics. You know, I've heard multiple stories, but you put it together, you kind of have a little bit of a chain of events. But it seems like with Al, sometimes you have him lucid to where he can talk, and sometimes he's talking like he's back in the room with all his, you know, he's in charge, and he kind of falls into that. And then you have him sometimes being caught up. It depends on where he is. He seems to be, most of that is it when he's seen in Chicago, and some of the there's a restaurant, I forget the name now, I had another story on it, and a hotel that he shows up at, and he kind of has that persona. I mean, he shows up at one of the prisons, or he shows up in that Miami home, he's more like all out of sorts, like the syphilis kind of, you know, agitation and everything is showing up, and he's just all jumbled around. He's going in between, just like he did at Life, I think. And when he's lucid, it's more like, I ain't crossing, I ain't going over there, I'm not going to give anybody a chance to get, over on me. And then when he's over in the other places, he's more like a large toddler, from what I understand. Does that make sense? So he's in a mess. He's in a mess, and it's going to take people a long time to get that one crossed, if you ask me. Yeah, elementals. There might be something completely different, Kat, with element, and that's kind of where my thinking is. I think everything's just a titch different. Not everything has the same laws. Does that make sense? Or boundaries. Yeah, baptized too. Water. There's some living. Water's life. It really is. Many U.S. Eastern Woodland tribes believe spirits kind of. Yes, that's true. That is true. Yep. All right, guys. Well, I think that's it. Steve, what you got going on this week? Are you back on the horse, baby?
Appear to be. I think everything get fired up again this week. Should have some new content for Missing Persons and Mysteries, and have a radio show this coming Sunday night. I didn't have one last week.
Yeah, it's rough, man. You get stuck in that thing, man. It's like the only thing I can do is like, I'll knock you down. Hey, Richard G, welcome in.
Hey, Judy, how you doing?
And it's just like you have to just stay in front of that train, and you just slip up and skip a little. It's like having a monster chasing you. Broke your ankle. Yeah. It just takes you over. And then with this one, it's like you think it's gone, so you ease up a little bit, and then it comes back and goes, I'm back. Yeah. And it hits you again twice as hard, just like the evil side. You know what I mean? So be ready for that, guys. Just always keep up your shield, put the white light around you. Try to be grounding more often now. Take the time to do it. You can do it through a guided meditation. Be very careful who you follow. Remember electronics, cross energy. So be careful. Pick something you trust. I often wonder about some of these sleep things, because I've known some pretty bad witches out there, and I'll tell you, be very careful. Don't just pick something and listen to it to go to sleep. Because what if it's a 10-hour tape or an 8-hour tape, and somewhere around hour 5, you wake up and there's chanting going on? Think about it. People are weird. People do dastardly things. So be very careful. Check your tapes you're listening to. You don't want anything going into your head while you're sleeping that you wouldn't want going into your head while you're awake. Trust me. Okay. So, Cisco caution number 5098.5. Okay. I love you all. We're going to get out of here. Steve, my love to the family, to Holding. Please give him a kiss on the cheek, and give Nick a hug. And thank you for being here tonight. I appreciate it. Yeah, and the whole show, if you watched last night, you're going to get lots and lots of ghosts. The wonderful Peter James in there walking you through Alcatraz and some other ghost stories too. It's a great combo between the two shows. And we will see you tomorrow night on Rumble only. And I would do it to YouTube, but YouTube won't let me. We are going to see another movie in our paranormal spiritual warfare realm, and I haven't chosen which one, so I'll announce it tomorrow morning. So get over there on Rumble and join our channel. Hit the like, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, or Rumble. And I love you all very much. We're going to dance our way out of here. Love you, sweetie. Love everybody in chat.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you so much. Like and comment. And thank you so much for being here. And never think that your light isn't bright enough for somebody to notice. You shine that light, and don't anybody put a bushel basket over it. Don't let anybody shut you up. You do what's right, and you keep shining that light. I love you all. Good night.
Amen.
Good night, baby.
Everybody. Good night.
Thank you.